Hi there boys and girls, welcome to another Science with Mrs Bosley. Today we're going to make some floating ice boats, but to start with I'd like to feel a little bit more sciencey. Okay, ready? Okay, so for today you will need some kind of container. Now I've got a plastic container, but it can be anything. If you've got one of those metal ones, it can be any shape or size as well. You are going to need some sort of stick. So I'm using a satay stick, but you might want to use a straw, anything that's going to be for the mast of your boat. You're going to need some water, a little bit of blue tack or Play-Doh or something that's sticky, a spoon, and if you choose, and if you have some food colouring. Now we're going to test it in a pool of water. I'm going to use my bath, but some of you might want to do it in a paddling pool or something like that. So I would maybe suggest not using food colouring if you're going to do that. Otherwise, the next time you take a dip in it, you're going to be a fancy colour. So the first thing we need to do is we need to change the colour of our water, if that's what you're going to do. So I'm just going to put a tiny little drop. We don't need to use loads of it. So I've got a nice green colour. Then with our spoon, we're going to give it a nice stir. Oh, actually, I think I might put a little bit more in. That's not very green, is it? Excellent. There we go. That's much better. Give it a stir. Be careful where you use your food colouring as well. You can see I've got some tissue down just so that I don't get green on the table. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to put in our mast. Now, this is too long. You have to bear in mind you need to be able to put it in your freezer. So I'm going to just snap mine up. You might want to get a parent or adult to help you. You might want to use some scissors. It's up to you depending on what you use, I suppose. Then I'm going to take my blue tack or Play-Doh or whatever it is that you're using. I'm going to put it onto the bottom of my mast. And I know where the centre of mine is because when on these plastic containers they always have that little knobbly bit at the bottom. So I'm going to put my mast right in the centre and squish it down. Okay, and then all we need to do before we put it in the freezer is to just pour our water in. Excellent, and now it's ready to go in the freezer. Okay, now that that's in the freezer, we're going to have to wait a little while for it to freeze. But while we're doing that, we can create our sail that's going to go onto our mast. So we talked about air resistance last time. With a sail, we almost need to create that air resistance. We need to create the surface that is going to slow the boat down. And when the wind blows, it helps to move it. So I've got 2 pieces of coloured paper. If you've only got white, that's absolutely fine. I've also got some felt tip pens, a ruler and some scissors. So first of all, I'm going to decide what shape I want. Lots of sails might be a rectangle shape. You might want to create a triangular shape. Just for today, I'm going to go for a rectangular one. So I'm going to almost, but not quite, half my piece of paper. So I'm going to draw a line across it. Now what I would recommend is that you actually check that this is going to be the right size. So you may want to measure it before you put it in the freezer. I'm not really sure, but I've just I know the kind of height is like this, so I think that's a really good size for me. I'm going to mark at the top and at the bottom on a straight line where my stick will go through. So I will have to make a hole at the top and the bottom eventually. But now all I need to do is decorate it. So you might want to stick some things on there. You may want to decorate it with felt tip pens. I've got a little different colour here which I'm going to use to create a little flag on the top. We're not pirates here though, so I'm not going to be creating a pirate flag. So I'm just going to decorate it now. Okay, so I have decorated my sail. I put some little spots and some love hearts all over it because we are not scary. And I've put the name of my ship on my flag and I've called it the HMS Callicraft. So all we need to do now is wait for our ship or our boat to freeze. Okay, so I have got this example. So this is one I put in slightly earlier in the freezer. The green one is still freezing, but I thought whilst we're waiting I could show you what to do with our sails. So I've got my sail that I did earlier. I have had to make it a little bit smaller. Like I said, it's probably better to measure it before you put your stick in and into the freezer. For this, you're going to need a little bit of glue tack and a pencil, and you're just going to halfway through make a tiny little hole by stabbing it into the glue tack. You may need an adult to help with this because we don't want anybody to hurt themselves. Okay, so I've got my sails. What we will do then is we need to feel it. It's very important to say, don't put it too close to the edge as well. I'm a little bit worried I might have done it too close, so that when I put it through my hole, it'll tear. But that's okay. If it does, we can. Oh dear, my hole's not quite big enough. Okay, so I'm going to put it in. Oh. There we go. Okay. So now you see we have got our sail for our ship. Perfect. So for this experiment, obviously you could just create one and have a little bit of fun with it. You might want to create like a race. And so I've got 3 ships and they're all a different shape. So my variable is the shape and size. However, I did measure the water that I put in to make sure that it was a fair test. And the sticks are all the same length, the mast is all the same length. You may have a set of containers, so you could change the size of the base of the boat, so the surface, so that means you would keep all of the water the same, but you may change the surface, whereas I've changed shape. You might want to change the shape of your mast, so you could have a triangular shape as well. So remember, you can change just one thing if you want it to be a fair test, and then you can race it. Or you could just do it for fun. But why not? Okay, so now that our boats are frozen, we can try them out in the water and we can see what happens. Okay, so let's put our green one in first. Oh! And red one. 2 out of 3. And 3 out of 3. But why do they float, you ask? So they float because although ice and water are the same material and they're just different states of matter, when the ice freezes, it expands. So you may notice that your container expands a little bit. That means that the same amount of molecules are taking up more of a space. This means that the ice is less dense, which causes it to float. So for example, the reason that a stone will sink is because a stone's particles are really, really closely compacted together, which means it's incredibly dense, which causes it to sink. So anything that floats is less dense than what it is floating on. So you might want to have a race. Maybe you want to line them up. You'll have to get your lungs out. I hope you enjoyed this video, boys and girls, and if you want to create a science experiment out of it, then I look forward to finding out your results. If you want to do it just to have a little bit of fun, well, why not? I hope you have a great time and I will see you soon. Bye!